Roi. This is Umair. I'm part of the Better Tech team, and on the Better Tech, we work with companies like yourselves, startups, tech startups, to understand what they're really doing and also how they're changing the world. So, welcome on our podcast. We'll kick things off by having a quick understanding or an introduction about you. So, why don't you take the stage and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Roi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a new startup called FinOut. Like many Israeli entrepreneurs, I started my way in the Israeli military, in the intelligence units. After that, I worked a few years in a company called Logs.io. And a year and a half ago, with two of my partners, we started FinOut. And here we are now.
Okay. So what is really FinOut?
So FinOut is about aggregating all usage-based price software in one place. So companies can see how much they're spending, both on the cloud providers, but on other infrastructure services or monitoring tools or CDNs or data warehouses, all in one place. Then we can break down the cost based on its most granular unit. So native Kubernetes support and native support for bits and drills into the amount of invoices that the company is getting, to allow them then to allocate the cost based on as they see fit for a customer, as a company. Sorry, so they can color each dollar based on a feature or department, and even assign business metrics directly to their costs, so they can start and analyze their costs as unit economics and understand what's the profitability margin from each customer, to understand what are good customers, what are bad customers, and what do we actually make from each deal.
So that's really quite a comprehensive intro of what you guys do, but let's break it down. So I guess in order to understand FinOut, we really have to first potentially probably understand FinOps and usage-based pricing. So if you can kind of help us break down these two, what is really financial ops? I mean, we have we understand what is sales ops, we have understand rev ops, we have understand engineering ops. What really is FinOps?
FinOps is codifying the framework for something that exists a while ago, right? But FinOps is designed to make everyone in the organization aware of their spend, especially the cloud spend, because this is the biggest one. And with FinOps culture within organization, engineers can understand and be responsible and accountable for the cost of the services that they're running. So they understand that they're not operating in a vacuum, and the same as they need to support SLA and they need to support low latency for the software, they also need to understand how much money they're spending. And with FinOps,
so correct me. So financial ops is really, I mean, for instance, I'm a company and there are several softwares that we use. For instance, we use potentially Xero for accounting, we use Jira for project management, we use AWS for hosting our platform, we are using some CDN for something else. And so FinOps is really about telling me, and normally in companies, all the bills gets to CFO or manager finance or manager accounts, and then they vet those bills and they pay those bills. So what you are essentially saying that whoever is using a particular service or responsible for providing a particular service, and whoever is using any cloud-based underlying software to provide that service, they get to see how much their work is contributing to that cost. So they can always keep on optimizing it. Is this what really FinOps is, to make everyone aware of their spend of the underlying cloud services they are using, and then making them responsible and accountable for that? And for that matter, you really want to, you're really showing them the numbers. Is this a correct interpretation?
Exactly. So FinOps is working in a cycle, right? So we need to show engineers how much they're spending, and then we need to give them the tools in order to operate on that cost, make informed decisions, cutting down spend where they can, and continue to monitor and be accountable for whatever they're doing. So FinOps is an organizational framework rather than more than anything else.
Okay. And what is essentially, so FinOps is one thing. What is essentially usage-based pricing? I mean, we understand that, but it would be helpful if you just describe your version of it, so for our audience.
Usage-based pricing is our way to get invoice based on what we actually used and not what we purchased in advance. So not working on seats, rather working on the amount of servers that we ran. So usage-based pricing is changing the world of software. The whole shift left movement started to get DevOps the main purchaser of software within organizations, and DevOps are very comfortable with purchasing something that is usage-based because they do not need to commit. It's very hard for them and natural. And the very first big usage-based price softwares in the world were the cloud providers. So AWS and Azure and GCP started to be, we're paying them as we go. And we usually go a lot further than what we anticipated. And we wake up, at the end of the month and figure out that the bills are just not making any sense, and it's not related to anything we anticipated, and budgeting became so hard. And a bunch of software started to solve that specific use case. And now usage-based pricing starts to get to more and more factors of and parts of our organization. So we're using Snowflake, we're using Datadog, we're using Twilio, we're using Mailchimp, we're using Akamai, we're using Stripe, or the hundreds of different tools that we paying them all as we purchasing. And now you're asking someone from finance, like, what's the budget and what's going to happen at the end of the month? And it's a very tough question to answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So essentially usage-based pricing has its inception. I mean, in many, you can think of AWS as a usage-based pricing, but at the end of the day, even co-working spaces are also work on usage-based model. You rent a desk, and if you're using it, you're paying for that. So usage-based pricing is already out there, and then FinOps is already now FinOps is taking a shape because you are making everyone responsible. So how the marriage is coming along? And how the FinOuts of the world really helping everyone?
So if we take, only 3, 4, 5 years ago, the only usage-based price software we had were the clouds, and clouds cannot run as fast as the entire market, right? So Snowflake is developing a better data warehouse than what AWS can do. So eventually the gap became so vast that it's made sense to migrate workloads out of AWS and into Snowflake, and it's their IPO looked like that, not by chance. And when I'm starting to migrate part of the cost from AWS to Snowflake, I suddenly get a hole in the bill. So I solved AWS billing already. Usage-based pricing for that, the cloud provider is solved. But now I have a huge gap and another vendor that I'm using that is unaccounted for. And the more I do it, the more services that I'm paying money for without really understanding, or just getting the bills at the end of the month and hope it's great. But more often than not, we started to see that how much we're spending on our infrastructure services is starting to grow in a higher rate than our revenue, and this going to lead to a disaster at some point. And if you want to plan our path to predictability and profitability, we can't be cutting down on everything else without understanding how much we're going to spend at the end of the month. We have to be more predictable. We have to be more accountable for the software that we're spending, regardless of its pricing model.
Okay, so okay, and when you go into an organization, let's say a small medium business, so is it, before I get to that question, is this really useful for companies? Who is the ideal customer for that? Someone who is extensively using cloud-based services, a SaaS company itself, which is providing services and developing services, or a normal business, which is probably using 4 or 5 cloud services, a service for an accounting, maybe a service for project management, maybe they are hosting their website on AWS. So who is really the ideal customer for your product?
So this saying that all companies are software companies, right? And I'm really growing to believe in that, personally. because we see, there are cyber companies that spend tons of money on AWS that obviously they need to be, they need to really understand their cost, and the cost per customer is, something that is huge that they really need to understand. But there are also e-commerce websites that are running on super thin margins, and even a bunch of servers can, tilt the month from profitability to not. And it's really dependent on the industry, but every company that is using cloud-based software is running blank at some point, and they need to get that visibility. So FinOut is all about the technology rather than the specific business vertical.
Okay, so usage-based pricing is probably easy to understand. There are many companies still out there which work on a monthly subscription model or an annual subscription model. So do you take that into account, or it's just for usage-based pricing?
Yes, of course. So, a company expense model is complicated, right? And some are usage-based, some are easily accessible, some are difficultly accessible, some are seat-based, some are, we have everything. So we support all kinds of, of bills that you can put directly into FinOut. It can be something that we natively support, like the cloud providers and Snowflake and Datadog, but it can be something that we don't natively support, and you can just upload the format, directly into FinOut and analyze the cost together with everything else.
Okay, so now that we understand your ICP, so for instance, once you go into a company, let's say a company of $100 million revenue, probably spending $1 million on their various services. What is typically an ROI they expect out of you when you integrate your software into there? So, what kind of savings or what kind of benefit they'll get?
So first of all, there is probably money on the floor, right? Things that are not optimized, underutilized, over-provisioned. So lots of things that we can just do and show them. Just point their eyes into the right place. To find that needle in the haystack. But when it gets more interesting, it's not about cutting down cloud costs now. It's it's admirable. You can cut down costs by 5%. It's amazing, but if you want to be like a very profitable company, it's not about cutting costs now. It's about doubling your revenue, but only increasing your cloud cost by a third. This is how you can really save big and be more and more profitable. And with FinOut, we help companies, normalize how much money do they spend based on their actual business performance, and they can make sure that they are growing at a healthy rate, and the economy of scale needs to kick in at some point. And with FinOut, you can actually measure that and see that, the more revenue, the more business you're getting, the lower marginal cost that you have per customer, and the more profitable you can get. And
so,
this is
so how you integrate, how it really works. So assuming I'm an e-com company, I'm using some XYZ software. Let's say I'm using Shopify or Magento for that matter for my e-commerce website, and underlying I have an AWS where my entire infrastructure is running. And maybe have some containers also running. So how do you integrate? I mean, to really understand how to increase the margins by optimizing the cloud costs, really needs some understanding of the business as well. So how do you go about that?
So we are connecting to the already existing solutions within the organization. So if they're running on AWS and Shopify and whatever, we can take the bills from there, and analyze them. But we can also connect to the observability systems and the API system that the company is already using. So you can connect to to Datadog, to Splunk, to New Relic, to Sisense, Looker, whatever that the company is already using as store to get the business and technological information. Tying them both can give us the full picture of what we're analyzing, because just the money is meaningless. Just the KPIs are meaningless as well, right? But tying them both can tell the whole story of the company, of our profitability and our margins, and how are we going to scale.
Okay. All right. So it has it has some merit for the companies to, and what's the cost of, let's say I want to implement FinOut. How your pricing model works, your own pricing model work for the companies who wants to implement? The FinOut.
So our pricing is based on the number of integrations that the company is using and the amount of dollars that they're passing through FinOut. We are, because of our technology, we're the cheapest solution in the market by far, because we can do lots of things that our competitors can't because of the way that we built FinOut. We were a lot more modern solution, and we were building the product to be vast, so we can run on multiple customers and give them all value without having the super complicated sales cycles that this market is used to. So we're trying to build something that is really different and the next generation kind of solution.
So you are charging per integration, right?
Per integration and the amount of dollars. So we're multiple tiers. Each tier grants you access to more integrations and more money.
So let's say I'm running my e-commerce shop on AWS. You'll charge me for an integration as well as my top line?
So depends on the tier that you're at, but for each tier you get access to more integrations and more total number of dollars that you're passing through FinOut. We have a free tier and we have we have a business tier, and our pro tier is the most generous in the market in terms of cost. You can check our public pricing page. We are as competitive as the market could be.
And how easy or difficult it is really to integrate FinOut into my existing infrastructure?
So it's another emphasis that we place is we need to be a company that is really, really easy to work with. So just connecting AWS with Kubernetes cost, we can do it without an agent. We can only look at Prometheus, only look at Datadog, look at solutions that are already existing with your KPIs. It can be a matter of actual minutes to get the Kubernetes cost management within FinOut, which is unparalleled. Okay.
And who are your competitors out there in the market? I mean, you're really competing against.
There's a bunch of big companies that are selling mostly to enterprise. So companies like Cloud Health that VMware bought, or Cloudability that Apptio bought, that's running on the enterprise market. And the market started to realize that it needs a more modern solution. So there's a new cohort of companies that are running to catch that. So companies like us, like Vantage, like CloudZero, like Cloudthread. We love them all. It's a super fun market to compete in, and the market is vastly big for everyone in it. We are the most funded solution currently in our cohort and running as fast as we can.
So when did you really start, and what kind of funding you've raised so far, if it's a public information?
Yeah, so the company started in March of 21, midst of COVID quarantines. We raised then our Series C, which was $4.5 million. A year and 2 months later, we closed our Series A, another $14 million. So a total of 18.5 in just over a year. So we have lots of money to run and innovate and hire the best talents and best folks in the market, to build that new generation solutions that the market deserves.
Wonderful. And you didn't feel any recession stuff affecting you in any way, like it's affecting many startups in terms of raising money, getting their softwares in? Actually, you can really help companies save money, so you should be in a better position. So yeah, but still, what's your take?
Like everyone else, we are opening multiple eyes into what's happening in the market, but we are doubling down on everything. I mean, we are in a business that is, running and getting prosperity at the moment with the upcoming recessions. I mean, cloud cost management is something that can no longer be ignored, and generating the path to profitability is something that is a board level decisions in many companies, and companies like FinOut can help you get there. So we are not slowing down at any point, but like everyone else, we always need to see what's happening, and continue to monitor the situation closely.
As a founder and CEO of a startup, are you getting some sleep or working 24/7 on the product and customer acquisitions?
Yeah, so sleep is not intended for Israeli founders with time zone difference. If you want to work with the West Coast and the East Coast, and even an Australian call once in a while, you pretty much work
24/7.
constantly. But it's part of the fun. This is what we signed up for, and
yeah. Great, Roi. It's wonderful talking to you, and great to know about the FinOut. So all the best wishes for you, and
thank you so much.
we hope to hear great stuff from you guys. Maybe a year down the road or somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great being on the call.